Hello and welcome to the Friday, January 24th, 2020 edition of Tesla Daily, unofficial Tesla podcast. My name is Rob Maurer. We don't have a ton of news to go through today, so this will be a pretty quick episode, but never fear, there will be more Tesla content over the weekend. Sean Mitchell of All Things EV was kind enough to invite me on his channel today for about a 40-minute discussion or so, just about a lot of various Tesla topics. So I believe that should be coming out probably sometime tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. I will tweet the link out at Tesla Podcast on Twitter when that is available. Tesla stock on the day today did finish down 1.3% to $564.82, but that did compare to the NASDAQ, which was down 0.9%. So a pretty tough day for the macro environment overall, seemingly driven by concerns around coronavirus. There have been more cases in China as Chinese New Year gets underway, which is the most heavily traveled period of time in China, so not ideal timing for a virus. And then today, the Center for Disease Control in the United States confirmed a second case of coronavirus in Chicago in the US. All that being said, I'd still say a relatively strong performance for Tesla on the day. Again, just down 1.3% with the macros down 0.9%, and a bit of a gap up towards the end of the day, which I usually like, especially when we're going into the weekend. We're now just 3 trading days away from the Q4 earnings report after hours on Wednesday. And thank you to those of you that upvoted the question on Say. It is now in the #1 spot, so hopefully that question will get asked, and we'll see what kind of response we get from Elon. In Tesla news today, we again hear from Senator Markey of Massachusetts about his contention with the Autopilot system. The storyline began a few months ago when Senator Markey saw some online videos of people using Autopilot and allegedly falling asleep. I contended at the time that those videos were likely fake based on the requirements of the Autopilot system, but they raised the ire of Senator Markey, who at a Senate Commerce Committee meeting in mid-November called on Tesla to, quote, disable Autopilot until it fixes the problem, end quote. Around that time, Senator Markey contacted both Tesla and NHTSA to discuss that point of view, and today he is out with his recommendations for Tesla. From Markey's office, quote, after writing to Tesla, receiving the company's reply, and meeting with Tesla representatives, Senator Markey has identified a few common sense fixes that he believes could improve the safety of Tesla Autopilot and do more to prevent drivers from disengaging with the road, end quote. Directly then, Senator Markey says, quote, Autopilot is a flawed system, but I believe its dangers can be overcome. I have been proud to work with Tesla on advancing cleaner, more sustainable transportation technologies, but these achievements should not come at the expense of safety. That's why I'm calling on Tesla to use its resources and expertise to better protect drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and all other users of the road. I urge Tesla to adopt my common sense recommendations for fixing Autopilot, which include rebranding and remarketing the system to reduce misuse, as well as building backup driver monitoring tools that will make sure no one falls asleep at the wheel. Tesla can and must do more to guarantee the safety of its technology, end quote. As you could probably tell by the laugh that accidentally snuck in there, I'm not on board with Senator Markey's point of view here. More driver monitoring, fine, I understand the argument behind that. I don't think it should be made on the basis of some random online YouTube videos that are likely faked just to get attention. But fine, while it may be a little bit less convenient for the consumer of the technology, I could see the argument for that improving safety. But the arguments around the name Autopilot have never made any sense and are so frustrating. Again, from Senator Markey's office, quote, in his investigation, Senator Markey found Tesla promotes confusion about the capabilities and limits of its driver assistance system with an inherently misleading name, quote-unquote Autopilot, that encourages users to over-rely on the technology. This branding significantly undermines all of the user manuals and subsequent instructions that Tesla issues to its customers that explain how the system is not fully autonomous and how drivers must stay actively engaged with the road. So I'm laughing because in the same breath he says that Tesla is being misleading while also presenting plenty of information about how to use the system and how it is not fully autonomous. All right. Then the post continues with the quote-unquote Markey recommendation, which says, quote, Tesla should rebrand and remarket Autopilot to make it clear from the beginning that its driver assistance system is not fully autonomous and cannot replace drivers on the road. This rebranding would significantly reduce the confusion that encourages driver misuse of the technology, end quote. All right, so I take issue with many of the points here. First of all, who is confused? You cannot just say that people are confused without any sort of evidence that anybody is confused. People falling asleep on YouTube videos is not evidence that they're confused about the naming of Autopilot. Newsflash, people fall asleep when they drive. That just happens. That happens in other vehicles too. That's not unique to Tesla. It's not unique to Autopilot. Do we have any statistics about the rate of occurrence of people falling asleep on Autopilot versus in other vehicles? No. So this is all completely based on personal feelings rather than actual data, which as you can tell is something that is quite flustering to me. Secondly, the term autopilot is probably the most precise and accurate term that Tesla could be using to describe its automated functionality. TMC user Zozo shared a helpful link on this to the actual handbook for autopilot systems for aviation from the FAA government website, and here are just a few quotes from that government website describing autopilot functionality. Quote, "While the autopilot relieves you from manually manipulating the flight controls, you must maintain vigilance over the system to ensure that it performs the intended functions and the aircraft remains within acceptable parameters of altitudes, airspeeds, and airspace limits." End quote. Further, quote, "An autopilot can be capable of many very time-intensive tasks, helping the pilot focus on the overall status of the aircraft and flight. Good use of an autopilot helps automate the process of guiding and controlling the aircraft." End quote. Then again, quote, "As with all automated systems, you must remain aware of the overall situation." End quote. And then there's literally a how to use section that says, quote, "Be ready to fly the aircraft manually to ensure proper course and clearance tracking in case of autopilot failure or misprogramming." End quote. Wow, all of those sound perfectly applicable to Tesla's autopilot system. I guess the FAA should also look into rebranding and remarketing autopilot systems. So frustrating, but I guess at least it doesn't seem like he's calling for Tesla to completely deactivate the system anymore. Next today are some comments from VW CEO Herbert Diess at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland this week. Sort of a nice contrast to the comments that we had from other automakers yesterday. Diess has obviously been pushing for electric vehicles, and this interview was no different, with Diess arguing against gas-powered vehicles, saying, quote, "No, the future will be electric in the passenger car world for sure. That's pretty clear now. This train is moving. It's gaining speed and getting momentum. We are preparing for this world. We will see a car that is emission-free, basically." End quote. Somebody may want to type that out, print it off, and get it in a letter over to Klaus Froelich at BMW, as presumably that would be his preferred method of communication. But anyway, back to Diess. He also said that he thinks Tesla is paving the way for electric vehicles, saying, quote, "It's modeling something new for the industry. I think we are close to follow. We are quite optimistic that we can keep the pace with Tesla and probably at some stage overtake." End quote. Now, I don't agree with that, but at least he is saying it. At least he's making the effort to put those words out there into existence, unlike BMW and Subaru yesterday. His other notable comment was that 2020 should be a breakthrough year for electric vehicles due to the legislation changes in Europe and China, mandating lower emissions, saying, quote, "We are well prepared and optimistic." End quote. And that is really it for the day and for the week. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on Monday for the January 27th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.